What is up, guys? We are live. Welcome to the Bags to Riches podcast. I'm your host, Zach Ginn. I'm joined today by Viktor Jiracek out of Gainesville, Florida. Victor is a real estate investor, sometimes a wholesaler, but mostly a house flipper out of Alachua County, and he is absolutely killing it. Did over 20 flips last year, and he's on pace to do a good amount of money doing it. And he's a very interesting dude. So in today's video, I really want to do a big breakdown because I get this question asked a lot, and I get a lot of wholesalers fighting me on it and a lot of people that don't. You guys know that I'm big into wholesaling. Wholesaling is my absolute favorite, but a lot of our deals, we actually flip, and we do wholesales, a little different than what Victor does, but I do everything here. And Flip with Rick YouTube channel, we do everything in real estate investing. So we're doing the big showdown today, the key differences between wholesaling real estate and actually flipping these houses. And Victor's got a pretty interesting setup going. I've seen the HUDs. He does it. Gainesville's a weird market for me, but it's interesting. So, Victor, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, man. So really, when we get started on this, how did you get started in real estate investing?
Sure. So pretty similar background to yours. So my family has a background in real estate. We were doing mostly buy and holds for the last couple of decades. So that's how I got my first taste of it. So we would buy properties. This was back in Utah. And we would buy properties as buy and hold and buy fixer-uppers. And I was 14 at the time, and I was helping out with these properties as much as I could, like helping with paint, helping like demo, rip out carpet, just haul stuff out, like whatever you can give a 14-year-old to do. So that was my primer. That was me getting started in it. Decided to go my own way, and then eventually came back to real estate. I think I had the real estate bug. I really enjoy it and have a lot of fun with it, and turned full-time real estate about 2.5 years ago. And I've just been doing it ever since. I just really don't plan to change. I really enjoy it.
Sweet. So really quickly, like, what does your operation look like now? Because obviously you're not wholesaling. You've done your first couple deals were wholesales technically, but
Right.
you're flipping them, and you're actually getting really good profits on them. So what does your operation look like right now?
Yeah. So I did 2 wholesale deals to start out, and then went full-time just flipping. So I haven't done any wholesale since like 2018. So it's been a while, honestly. So the operation now, it's just anything we take down, we flip. I have 2 rentals, but I'd honestly be happy to sell those rentals. Pretty small team. It's me. We have a lot of like subcontractors, like roofers, good flooring people, good painters, good people, handymen to do the work. I have a project manager, a couple VAs. So pretty lean team. And then probably the next step is to get like an acquisitions manager who can do this stuff full time. It's still me going out there looking at deals, looking at properties. But that's the current operation, just pretty lean, small. I do everything locally, Alachua County, so I get some economies of scale or kind of benefits where I don't have to have a huge operation. So it's working out so far. And just like you mentioned, it did 20 flips last year, and the goal is 30 this year, and on track so far. So that's exciting.
Nice, man. So the key reason why I thought you would be really good here, because I could put the average flipper on there, and a lot of the wholesalers, a lot of cash buyers I send these deals to, they make terrible deals, but your margins are actually pretty good. And you treat your business sort of like a wholesaler, except at the end, you actually flip them and you get good profit. So what's the average profit of a flip for you right now?
So we like to stick to the 70% rule. So in my market, Gainesville, I'm roughly 30K net. Some of them are more, some of them are less. And it's 30K net. So this is after all expenses before taxes. So about 30K net on average.
I appreciate you saying that. They're the average guy out here selling a course will say you 50K net, but honestly, it's always 30. So we like to keep them pretty close to there. I mean, we're closer to 40 to 50, but these are like probate deals, and we got crazier stuff. But Alachua, your price points are a lot lower, right?
It is, yeah. So typically we're buying below 100,000, fixing and selling for above 100,000. I love to do those deals where like we're selling the 200s, 300s, because you can get those bigger spreads. If we wanted to have like 100K net deal, I mean, we'd have to be doing those bigger deals. I mean, we'd have to be getting it for free, for where we're at. So I'm happy with the 30. I like to do volume. So, 30K and it's a deal, and then move on to the next one.
I would say making 30K on a $100,000 property is more impressive, in my opinion, than making 50 on a $400,000 one. So,
interesting.
Definitely. So you're doing about 20 of those a year. You're trying to pump these numbers up. So
That's right.
can you explain if on these 30K deals, how much money are you putting in these?
It is going to depend on the deal. Sometimes we do hard money. Sometimes we just self-finance it. So it just depends. I like to do the hard money. Typically, we need like 10% down of the purchase price, and then the hard money lender covers the rest in terms of purchase price and 100% of repairs. So my average down payment, about 20K, 30K. So it's really nice when you put in 20, 30 and you get out 30. Those are exciting numbers. And then luckily we're in and out relatively quickly. Again, we get because we do this over and over again, we can just use the same people. We have the same process in place, use the same materials, same colors, all that stuff. So we're in and out closing table to closing table, typically like 4 months. So buy it, renovation takes 30, 45 days, put on the market, hot market, so things go quick. And then, closing and selling takes some time, but that's typically how it looks like for us.
Okay. So 20 to 30, you said, so on the repair cost.
As a down payment, like the money we have to put into it, if we do hard money. Yeah.
So the repairs. So how much are you putting those?
For repairs, it's going to depend on the property. I'd say average is probably 20K. Probably like every deal we do, it's always paint and flooring, like almost every single deal we do. Sometimes we can get clever with the kitchen and keep it the same, maybe paint the countertops, not do a brand new kitchen and be clever that way. But it's always paint and flooring. So that's typically what it is.
Alrighty. And so your operation, you've said you've bought from wholesalers before and sometimes your own acquisitions straight to seller. You obviously have the operations go wholesaling, but you're not. Can you explain the reason why you're doing that flipping model versus the wholesaling model?
I always thought flipping is easier than wholesaling. So to get a good flip deal, at least these are my numbers, it's something like 1 out of 15 offers becomes a deal. And then for wholesaling, I always saw like you have to get a good deal and then some, because that and then some is your assignment fee. Like that's what you're going to get paid. So when I was doing the wholesaling, I felt like 1 out of 30, 1 out of 40 offers became a deal. So I felt like it was a lot more effort, a lot more energy expenditure. And then like the paycheck would be smaller. So like for my first assignment fee, I made $3,000. Second one made $3,500. So I'm putting in like double the work for 1/10 of the financial output. So I wanted to go flipping. I enjoy flipping too. So it's 1 out of 15 offers, and that becomes a deal, and that's 30K. So that's how I look at it. I also just didn't like the wholesaling. I think that was part of it too, just because I didn't like being the middleman, kind of squeezed in between. I like taking down the deal myself and flipping it, and that's a really cool process to see the renovation. But that's how I look at it, flipping versus wholesaling.
All righty. And so in your business right now, what's the percentage of these deals that you're getting now that are from wholesalers versus the acquisitions whole process?
Sometimes 50-50, but half from wholesalers, half that we source on our own. So it's kind of a blend there.
Wow, interesting. Okay. And what's your marketing looking like?
Marketing, I've been doing mostly off-market stuff. I've actually been getting a lot of success with like Facebook groups. So like you post in Facebook groups and people respond, and been having a lot of success there. Been doing a little bit of cold calling. SEO is working for us. So just really working on the website, getting reviews, building up the SEO. I get probably like a lead a week recently. It's like a couple, 5 leads becomes a deal. So that's been working. Cold calling still works. It might not necessarily work in bigger markets with the cold calling, but me being Gainesville's 130,000 population, it's still working here. So that's how I typically source the deals on my own.
Nice. Okay. And probably one of the most important things when it comes to flipping is you've probably seen all the HGTV shows, the A&E stuff. It's all trash. Like once you start flipping houses, you understand. What are some of the very important things that you can give the audience right now on actual flipping versus these shows? Because you're not putting the most beautiful stuff in there. You're doing what gets the best ROI. So what's the key differences?
So I just want to piggyback off of what you said and extend that. So I always look at the comps for the area just to figure out what I'm going to put into the place. So if all the comps that I'm looking at are like laminate countertops, then I'm going to put in laminate countertops. I see this as a mistake for a lot of beginner flippers. Like everything in the area is like laminate countertops. Then you put in granite or you put in quartz, and you're like, yeah, this is going to be amazing. It's going to sell for a ton more. I just like to match it to whatever else is selling. If it's selling for a reason. That's what people want. So let's just give the people what they want. So that's the first tip I give.
Okay. And so you find what's good at the comps. So obviously what are some of the colors that someone should do if they're painting some houses? Because I've seen some flippers lately get some stupid colors. So what colors are you trying to do with all of your deals right now?
Yeah, for sure. So for exterior, it really depends on the neighborhood, the foliage. We always stage our properties, and an interior designer stages our properties. So we always ask her for like a color consultation, like, hey, what do you think we should do on the outside? So she helps us out there. Typically, we do like a whiter or cream base, and then some sort of trim color that maybe pops, like a darker trim or lighter colored or colorful trim. So that seems to work. For the inside, we pretty much do the same always. So we use like gray walls and then white trim, just that modern look. That always seems to go well. And then for flooring, we do like a light gray. To get specific, we really like Sherwin-Williams Reflection. I think it's 7166, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, wow.
And that's for the base, and then just white trim. And it looks really good. I've heard Agreeable Gray is really good for the inside. Just like that kind of like light gray modern look is still working for us. People like it. And I mean, those houses are flying off the shelves for sure.
Dude, it's insane. I had one deal. I posted a video. It'll be on here in like 2 months, but we bought it on April 1st and got under contract the 2nd. This should sell within a month. It's insane.
Good for you.
Is Gainesville like that right now? Like, is it like flying off?
Mm-hmm. So I had one I listed, I think it was last week. We listed on Friday. I went live in the afternoon. And then by Saturday, we had a full offer. And I think by the end of the weekend, we had 5 offers out of like, I don't know, 10 or 15 showings. So it is definitely hot because of Corona and all that stuff. So it's definitely hotter. So we're definitely seeing that. We were having no trouble selling stuff back in 2018. Honestly, like we would still list it and it would look good. And within a week, we get a full offer. So it's nice that it's hot and multiple offers, and that's cool. But it's also harder to get deals. So there's always that trade-off as a flipper. So
definitely. I think one of the biggest parts about flipping is I do some of my wholesales is it's like the wholesaling, like you get the wholesale price more or less, but you're selling this to like end buyers and you're getting way better margin. So right now, when it comes to the actual sell part, you fix it up, you make it look nice, you keep it within budget. What are you doing on the sell side? Are you a realtor? Are you listing this? Do you have a realtor? What's going on with that part?
Yeah, good question. So I'm not a realtor actually. So what we do, I'll tell you how much I saved by doing this. So I use what's called a flat fee service. Yeah. For Florida and Alabama, you can use flatfee.com as an example. There's numerous of these all over the United States, and in like every different state has a different service. But what it is, so you pay a flat rate. For me in flatfee.com, it's like $175, and then they're able to list it on the MLS. They list on Zillow, Realtor.com, Trulia. So they list it everywhere. And then you save that 3% with a realtor. What's good when it's your first time, it's totally cool to use a realtor if you want to feel more comfortable that way with like documentation, negotiation, showings, all that good stuff. But as you do this more and more, you realize like this process is pretty repetitive. Like it's the same paperwork every time. It's the same process every time. So then it makes sense to start using this flat fee service and saving that 3%. I did the calculation. I've saved 119,000 plus by listing it myself. Versus paying that realtor that 3%. So pretty exciting to say the least. And that's a lot of money. That's it's a good salary for someone. So
it's insane.
That money. Yeah.
And so who are you? So how does it work if when dealing with realtors, showings, all that? Are they doing that or are you?
They're doing that. So the buyer typically is going to have a buy side realtor. We throw a lockbox on the place, and then we say, hey, anytime you want to check it out, that's fine. I typically don't show up for the showings. We've never had an issue with that. We just want to make sure they're with a realtor. If someone like out of the blue, like a random buyer reaches out to us, we try to assign them to a realtor just to make sure our ducks are in a row. And typically for those buyers, they're less, like if they don't have a realtor yet, they're less farther along the buying journey in terms of buying a house. So like they're less serious. So I've never actually sold a house without a realtor. I've never sold it directly.
Okay. And are you sticking, I don't know how long these flips, you said 4 months from start to finish.
Closing table.
Are you starting to like hit the FHAs or it's just too soon for that for most of these when you put them on the market?
So about half of our like sales are FHA. Then we have like VA, I've done USDA, I've done conventional, I've done cash. Typically to talk to your point, it's typically like 90-day flip rule. So that's why we do our renovations a little bit slower, just because we'd rather, a lot of our buyers are FHA, and typically those buyers can pay more and they're less picky. Just because it's less out of pocket and it's great rates and it's government guaranteed. So that's why we take it a little bit slower, but that's why it typically takes about 4 months, is because we got to pass that 90-day threshold so we can get the appraisal in there, appraiser, and all the other stuff that's FHA required.
Okay. And obviously I do some flips too. And I think I've done a vlog, if you guys have seen this. I've walked in some houses and I've just told myself, I am not flipping this. I am not putting 80, 70K this thing needs. And when you're dealing with a property or you're dealing with a seller and you're literally dealing with a house that's like just so bad. There's no roof. It's like there's rats everywhere, termites. Like, do you have a limit on like, you're not going to go flip this house? Like, this is something I can't even deal with?
I do. So there's definitely a difference, like, hey, should I fix this up and sell it? Or is it just better to tear it down and start scratch and do new construction? I've never done new construction, so I just typically pass on those deals. If I can give the seller the resources to be successful on their own, just because it isn't a fit for me, then, you know, still happy to do so. Really, it looks at the numbers. So if it makes sense to just build a new house, versus by the time you get into your renovations, like, oh, it needs new windows, it needs a new roof, it needs new drywall, new framing. You create the whole list, and like the numbers don't make sense anymore just because you have to build everything from scratch. That's when I typically say, hey, let's just pass on it. Or, hey, makes more sense as a tear down. And I've had those deals before a lot, you know, where it's just like, I don't want to touch this thing. I don't want to send anyone in here because it's so rickety and like the floors are bad. And it's like, hey, just start from scratch. So it typically just comes down to the numbers though.
All right. And some just housekeeping things. I'm thinking if someone's brand new in this thing,
Sure.
Are you buying insurance on these properties when you close on them?
Yeah, no. So we have to do property insurance, especially when we do hard money. We have to have the insurance on there. And we just do typically, I don't know how much detail you want me to go into it, but we just typically do like a standard property insurance.
Okay.
We're in and out with these properties, so there's rarely issues. I did have to deal with fire damage on one. I had a rental and we had fire damage, and it's been a pain in the butt, to say the least. It's just dragging on and on, but it reinforces the need for insurance, because that's another thing you find out. This is what I found out recently, especially as you do scale. A lot of these things that are like 1 in 1,000 chance or 1 in 100 chance, they start to happen, just because if you do 100 properties and there's a 1 in 100 chance of something happening, like a fire, like that's going to happen. So this is more of an advanced technique or advanced thing to think of. So you got to hedge your downside. So always property insurance. It really helps out.
Perfect. I just want to make sure, because there's gonna be one person watching this like, I'm gonna go in all out, and they don't do this, and it freaks them out. The next thing, probably one of the most important one I have to ask you here is, I do flips too. It is almost impossible in my market. Not impossible, like we get them, but to find labor. Like sometimes it's just super hard to find labor. So how are you finding good and reliable painters for pretty cheap in this market when just the labor market's insane?
It is insane. Yeah, it's crazy, especially with Corona. The opposite happened. I thought things would slow down. Things have sped up, and everyone's crazy busy. I always try to sell the relationship, just because, like, when you come to me and you get a job for me, if you do a good job, you're going to get future work. So you don't have to chase and make quotes and anything like that. So part of where we are now, like, you got to sell yourself. So how can I sell myself? Like, hey, I am a repeat customer. I'm not like Dick and Jane down the road where they just want you to paint their house once and you're done. I want, I do 30 flips a year. That's potentially, 30 paint jobs. So that's potentially 30 jobs for you to do. So I like to sell it that way. So first thing is to sell yourself. Second thing is to like go beyond and try to build a relationship. It's not just, this is a horse trade. Hey, you did the painting, here's money. Okay, we'll see ya. It's just getting to know them on a deeper level, on a more personal level, knowing them, their family, their situation, if they have something going on. That's also part of it. I think the third thing is just thinking of the funnel mentality. So I know when it comes to sourcing deals, you have funnels. Like you get, 100 leads, you make 50 offers, you get, whatever, 2 deals. Or whatever the numbers are. So having that same sort of funnel mentality when it comes to contractors, like, hey, I got a hold of 20 contractors and 10 actually got back to me, and 5 gave me quotes, and 3 of those quotes are reasonable. So I'm going to pick that best guy. So just having that same funnel mentality. I know a lot of people, especially beginners, like, hey, I called one painter and didn't hear back. So now the labor industry is tough, and it is tough, but it's just that same funnel mentality. So now, because it is tighter, you just got to increase that upper limit on the funnel. So instead of before you could call 3 painters, now you got to call 20. So it's definitely a pain in the ass, but you can still get it done.
All right, sweet, man. And so roofers are driving me crazy, but that's for a different day. So in the beginning here, so what is your craziest real estate story? You've been in this business for a little bit. What is your craziest flipping story?
Craziest flipping story. There was a house we bought. So we bought a house. We saved the guy. He was late on his taxes. And on Tuesday, his house was going to get sold and go to auction. And we ended up paying off his tax bill on Monday. So you think he'd be grateful. But we'll get to that in a second. So we eventually closed on the house. And because he had a ton of stuff in there, he was a hoarder situation, and he was saying hey, I've got some valuable tools and such in here. After we close, give me 30 days to get everything out. The mistake we made is there was no post-closing occupancy agreement, which is key. And then sometimes you do a holdback, so you don't give them all the funds. If you do something like that, you hold something back, and if they aren't out, then there's a penalty. So what happened was this guy, I think he was on drugs, or I don't know what was going on, but it took him not 30 days, but 90 days. And he was just nuts, to say the least, and just hard to deal with. And he thought I was going to try to murder him once. I thought he was going to try to murder me once, just because he was, whacked out. Then he went to jail for a little bit, so we got some peace and quiet. So we got some work done, and then he came back, and then he was kind of harassing the workers. And one of the workers pulled a gun on him once, and then another time another worker pulled a gun on him, a separate day. Eventually he left us alone because we called the cops on him a couple times because he had no right to be there. The issue was the property was here, and on the back side of the property, that's where his mom lived. So he was living with his mom once he sold the house. So he's 100 feet away from the house, from the house. So he's still bothering us instead of leaving the neighborhood. Eventually sold that house. Wasn't a great flip, but happy to be done with it. And that was pretty crazy. I wouldn't necessarily do that deal again. And sometimes you try to help people out, especially in his case, he was late on his taxes, but then he resented us saying hey, you guys bought the property from me for too little, and I could have done it myself, and I would have made a ton more money. But at the same time, he was literally about to lose the house. And not to say he has to be grateful, but to be on the negative side of things that much, where he really hated us and didn't want to deal with us, was surprising, to say the least. So that was pretty crazy to say. That's pretty
Jesus,
crazy.
Man.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if everyone's watching this freaked out, it's Florida, so it's pretty normal. But yeah, that's crazy. So that was a little nuttier deal. But I mean, on your flips in your career to date, what's the largest spread you've ever made on a deal?
Mm-hmm. So largest spread is about $64K net.
Wow.
Again, after all expenses, before taxes.
What was that whole deal looking like?
That one was also crazy. That's probably my number 2 craziest one. So what happened was a local wholesaler / realtor, so she's mostly a realtor, reached out to us. She said, hey, I know you guys flip houses. I have this family friend who needs to sell a house. I want to sell their house. I just want to sell it to you because it's, it needs a ton of work. So it's a flip property. And then she also, the realtor said, hey, I also flip properties. I'm too busy right now, so I can't take this property on. So we took it on. Awesome. We were under contract to buy it. She signed it. The payoff came back from the mortgage company for the seller, and it came off way higher than expected. So the realtor was promising hey, you guys are going to walk away with 20K. You're going to walk away with 20K. This is awesome. With a payoff, it was wiped down to 0. So they weren't going to walk away with anything, but she had made these huge promises and she wasn't going to be able to deliver. So that's when the realtor kind of turned on us and said hey, I'm going to take you to court. What you're doing is illegal. You can't buy this house. Then she said, because the seller was I think 84. So she called national elderly abuse on us, saying hey, you're abusing this elderly woman. Oh, we're just trying to buy her house. And the payoff came off bad. So went through that. She said she's gonna take us to court. Eventually we figured it out. We adjusted the price. I think the seller walked away with nothing, which was unfortunate, but we paid the wholesaler her whole fee because that's what she was after in the end. That's the family friend for you. So we eventually, bought the deal, fixed it up, had a mold issue. We knew about that. That's fine. Fixed it up, new paint, new flooring, new roof, new kitchen. Bought it for 78, put in 45, and then sold for 200.
Wow.
It was 64K net deal, but it was well earned to say the least. So I lost some sleep over that one because it was just so crazy, and we didn't know if we were going to do the deal. And it's like, hey, I'm going to take you to court. I'm going to smear your name in town, and so that's. I can't remember what the question was, but
that's your best deal. That's a fun one. So, Victor, you're in your 20s. You're not an older dude. You're sort of like me. I'm in my 20s. I think the biggest lesson I learned when I started flipping, like when I was 19, 20, was I would bring a roofer or maybe a painter in there, and they thought I didn't know anything because I've been doing this since I was 17. Like I know exactly the cost of things. And I got like 4 or 5 guys just give me stupid prices. Like $3,000 the cost of something. They'd keep telling me 6 or 7. What advice would you give to someone? They're like 23. They're trying to get into flipping. Like, how do they figure out the prices of stuff, and how do they not get screwed over by like greedy contractors?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've recently had a lot of success. Instead of letting the contractor take the lead and them giving you the price, just you starting out with a budget. Like, hey, I need the painting done for the interior. These are the colors. I'm at 3K. Can you make that happen? And if you know your numbers, which hopefully you do, then you come at that number and they know that's a fair price. You know that that's a fair price, but you're the one taking the lead. Like if you take the lead or let them take the lead, that's when I've seen that happen, where they come in too high and then they expect you to like maybe negotiate it down, but then they still get more than what's fair. So I've just seen a lot more luck. Like, hey, you are the property owner, or you're the wholesaler, or you're the whoever. You are the one in control. Like it's a symbiotic relationship. Like you're both helping each other out. You pay fair for his service for the contractor, but this is your arena, so to speak. Like this is your house. You're in control. So that's how I think about it that way. So you set the tone. Say, hey, this is my budget for it. Can you make it happen? And for some people, for most of the people, it should be fine. For some people, it might not be. But just taking the frame and taking that has been a lot of success there.
Okay. And for another younger guy, obviously you teach people how to flip houses. We can get into that, but it's also on your website. But how can newer people understand the process of house flipping? Obviously, there's not a lot of free content out there. There's more guys on YouTube doing it. I'm trying to help a little bit. What are some tips you can give for someone to actually learn how to actually flip a house the right way?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, YouTube University, your guys' channel is a really good resource. I'd recommend like Bigger Pockets. There's a lot of books on flipping and that sort of thing. I always like, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's more of a general, like why to do real estate, why to do investing versus more of the how-to or the specifics. Part of it too, like if you can go to local RIA meetings, like REIA, like Real Estate Investor Association, or like local real estate investors meetups, that's a great way to learn. Make it more real versus you just learning through a computer screen. There's a lot more value in like knowing people who do it, and like, hey, this guy's doing it. Just makes it more accessible. So that's how I recommend it that way. Just getting out there. I think getting out there and getting outside is a great way to get started.
Perfect. And let's go over some questions here we got from the audience here. So Lucian says, what's up? What's good, Zach? Work on my first personal flip, present my offer day. Sweet, man. Awesome. Nice. Cool. Good job. Hey, Zach, is Milwaukee or Maryland a better wholesale market? I'll say Milwaukee on this one. Good info that, Zach. Thanks. What's up? Victor's the man.
Hey, nice.
Just closed a deal with him yesterday. Oh, snap.
That's right. I know Mark. He's a wholesaler. Yeah. He wholesales the deal, and yeah.
That's great. If someone's looking into the flipping, how do you find someone who's a good wholesaler or not? Like how do you deal with and actually find the right guys? Because there's guys that don't put any meat on the bone.
That's I've seen that too, where like the numbers don't make sense. Like ARV is way too high, and then like repairs are super low, and then like with those numbers it makes sense. But with wholesalers, I like to apply that funnel mentality. So you have 10 wholesalers. Out of 10 wholesalers, 5 of them are never going to send you a deal ever. that's going to be worthwhile. Maybe they're just beginners, or they just don't understand how it works, or for whatever reason. 3 of those 10 can send you maybe a deal per year. 1 can send you a deal per quarter, and then 1 of those can send you a deal per month. And then I like to look at it as a relationships-based business. So try to get to know them, try to follow up with them, keep in touch with them. So when they do have a deal, you're at the top of the list and you can get started there. So that's how I like to look at it. I got started wholesaling, so I know a lot of the pitfalls of working with cash buyers. So I try to turn that on its head when I'm the cash buyer. So things like negotiating someone down, like a wholesaler down like $1,000 or $500, and then you're going to make 20, 30, 40,000 on it. I try to avoid that as much as possible. I'm just trying to make the transaction as smooth as possible. Sometimes wholesalers might have a deal, like they're about to put it under contract and they're still negotiating with the seller. Sometimes they kick it over to me like, hey, is this a deal? What would you buy it at? Just so I know whether or not to, proceed with it. So like those little things really add up. But that's how I typically look at that sort of stuff.
Sweet. And another question I had for you here is, you're in your 20s, you're making good money in flipping.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing with your money to actually invest it? Because you're reading Rich Dad Poor Dad. You understand the power of compound interest, buying assets. Obviously, you don't want to be a flipper forever, but what are you doing to actually use those profits to make more money?
Honestly, I wouldn't mind being a flipper forever. Honestly, I don't want to knock on wood, but I wouldn't mind it. I'm basically I want to do more deals, bigger deals, better deals, and I mean that's pretty much it. Next year, the goal is I don't know what it's going to be next year, but maybe like 40 flips or 50 flips. God willing, market willing. But I enjoy the flipping, and maybe if anything, maybe throw off into a couple of rentals just so for tax benefits and cash flow and all that good stuff. But yeah, I enjoy flipping. I enjoy the process of flipping. Now that I'm out of it more, so to speak, like before when I started, I would be helping out doing the work, doing the painting, helping with the flooring. I wasn't very good, but I still helped out with it. And then I've been slowly stepping back. Now, as I mentioned, I have the project manager, so it's more like a seamless orchestrator is what I am.
Okay.
Conductor is the word. So stepping out of it more and more, so I get to see the cool beauty of it and enjoy the transformation without blood, sweat, and tears into it. Nothing against flipping. I really enjoy it, so I might be doing this for the future.
I love it, man. So you're delegating your stuff out. So right now, where are you actually doing the work? Are you going to appointments? How is this all working right now for you, and where are you trying to get out?
Yeah, so I am doing the appointments still. I'm still doing the appointments. I still check in on the property once in a while. Probably the property manager, I don't know, maybe once a month. It just depends. I mean, once when it starts, once when it ends. So that's how I typically check in. I still sign all the documents, sign all the papers, do all the wires, all that sort of stuff. So probably my next hire is the acquisitions manager, someone full-time who can go on those appointments and talk to the sellers, follow up with people. And that's probably the next step for me. And then I'll be even a step further back. And then after that, I don't know what it is after that. It might be another acquisitions manager. I haven't thought that far ahead. My next hire is acquisitions manager, someone who can do that, part-time, full-time, really focus on getting the deals, and following up with folks.
Perfect, man. And Audrey asked, how much cash do you recommend having to do the start to finish?
Mm-hmm. So if you're going to go the hard money route, there's ways. So let me start with that. There's ways to do these deals, no money down. And that's how I got started. I got started low 500 credit score, maybe a couple thousand in the bank. And you do what's called a money partner route. So you find the deal, you help manage the renovations, you help sell it. So you're boots on the ground, you're the sweat equity. And then they put in all the money. That's the money partner. And then you do some sort of profit split. Maybe 50-50, 70-30. I've seen 60-40. I've seen all of the iterations. So that's one route. With that route, you wouldn't necessarily have to have any money out of pocket, maybe for marketing or maybe some of those smaller costs. So that'd be kind of the money partner route, and a lot of people, as well as myself, have been successful there. If you want to do hard money, typically you need 10% down of the purchase price, just like I was mentioning earlier. And in that case, it's going to depend on your market. For my market, I mentioned 20K is a great start. So 20, 30K, if you want to go that route. Some people are more comfortable with one route versus the other. But to get started, don't necessarily think you have to have a lot of money. Money shouldn't be the thing holding you back.
Okay. So my next question here is, first of all, we got San Antonio. What's up, Philip?
Hey.
I was going to ask this question, but Don asked this. How do you raise private money to get started in flipping?
How I've done it is just as mentioned, like local RIA meetings, meetup groups. I think that really helps, just networking with people there. My first private money was a gentleman I met at a meetup group, or at a local RIA group. And he's like, "Hey, I am very busy. I want to get into real estate investing. I just have a lot of money sitting in the bank, but I want to get started." And from there, the conversation flourished. I said, "Hey, I'm doing flips, and would you like to invest?" And it's like, and it worked out. And he and I still invest together. Nice. So that's how I'd recommend. Just like, start locally, especially with Corona. Like, these events are starting to open up. So if you can solve other people's problems, then you can be super successful. So in that case, he had money but didn't have time. I had time but I didn't have money, so it was a good fit, and we were just able to make it happen.
Perfect. And I mean, like right now, I mean, you got the numbers, you got the HUDs to prove like you're doing these deals, so it's a lot easier right now for you to do private money. What are some tips for someone that like literally like super young and they don't even have a deal to even prove?
Yeah.
How can they help in that? That's tough.
That is tough. Yeah. I recommend starting with your immediate network. So like people who know you, have known you for years, like family is a great start. Friends, just colleagues, people just, directly is a great start. The other thing I recommend is something called like the leapfrog method. So you as you talk to people, you don't necessarily pitch them directly. You always ask like, who do you know who could help me out on this? And then maybe they'll point you in a direction. And you can ask that person like, oh, who do you know who could help me with this? And they'll, point you in the right direction. So you basically like leapfrog and jump and eventually find the right person, but you're expanding your network doing so. And eventually you'll ask that question, like, who do you know who could help me out with this? And eventually someone will raise their hand like, hey, I actually want to help you out with this. I actually want to invest in real estate, but I haven't known how to get started. I have money, but I don't have time. And there we go. That's how it goes. So I recommend the leapfrog method. You'll just expand your network and eventually find that person.
Dude, that's great. All right. So Wisconsin, is Wisconsin a good market, or Tennessee? I think both of them are good. I think I like Tennessee for virtual, but Maverick says, I'm in Gainesville, Florida. I want to do my first flip this year. Sweet.
Nice. That's
all
awesome.
Right.
Maverick.
Sweet.
Cool.
All right. Don says, I'm also in San Antonio. Nice. Jamar wants to know, can you name a meetup group?
You're going to have to look locally because it's super local. Like for me here, I think there's like Gainesville RIA, there's Neighbor Makers, and there's like a couple smaller ones. And then there's one in Ocala, which is about an hour away. So you're going to have to look. It is going to be super local. So it might be like San Antonio or Real Estate Investors, or, Texas Real Estate Investors. And there's also Facebook groups for that. So keep that in mind. Like Florida Real Estate Investors. And that's a good start. But it is going to be like local and specific. So I can't name like a specific thing.
Perfect. I don't know if this is you, but I like the Burr video in Tacoma. If that's the same guy, was that you?
I don't think so. No, I've never.
Not.
No.
You're not into Burrs, right?
I've done Burrs. Just not up my alley right now. I like the flips too much.
Yeah, I love flipping too. But my next question for you here is, obviously you've probably thought about this, but let's say a 2008 situation happened, or what we all thought COVID is going to happen, like real estate was going to crash. Hopefully you weren't holding any properties when that was going on, but what was your thoughts, and what's kind of your processes if the market starts like going down?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, we would try to sell what we have. We have we have 9 flips because we bought one yesterday. We have 9 flips
nice.
right now. So either we try to sell them. They're in different stages. Like one of them is under contract. One's going to be listed Friday. So they're in different stages. Some are like mid renovation or close to end the renovation. So we would try to sell it, even if we sell it at a little bit of a discount, take a hit on profit just to be out. So that's probably the first thing we would do. If we can't do that, we would just turn them into rentals. So luckily, especially in this market, like the numbers still make sense for rental. Might not be ideal in what we want to do, but that's what we have to do. After that, I know a ton of people who have had success where if it is a 2008 situation where people were still successful in real estate, you just got to change your strategy. I know a ton of people who did like short sales and did awesome. I know people who did like owner financing, creative financing, and did awesome, like 2008 to 2014. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. I think real estate is here to stay. People need a place to stay, and That's going to stick around, but just the vehicle or like how you help people out with real estate is going to change. So maybe traditional fix and flip won't work, where you buy it, fix and upsell it. Maybe you have to get creative, and maybe there's other ways. But I think there's always a way to be successful, especially with this sort of thing. You just got to figure out the angle, or you got to figure out a way to make it happen.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you used to be able, Rick used to say, you used to wholesale short sales back in the day. They changed that thing so fast. It's so crazy, but short sales are still great, man. Don says, how do you find your public record comps in non-disclosure states? We don't have that problem here in Florida.
No, yeah, I think that's a Texas thing.
Yeah,
I don't know. Because I have some students in Texas, in like Tyler, Texas, and it's kind of tricky over there. What I've seen is if you can see like the list price. So if you know they listed at 150, typically things are selling for what they're listing for. That's kind of a rough gauge. So if it listed for 150 and you can see that number, then you probably sold for 150. But that's not perfect. Probably a realtor can pull that for you, honestly.
Yeah. You get MLS access, you can probably do it pretty easy. Where do you find good deals apart from cold calling and going direct to seller?
I mean, there's on market versus off market. You got to do off market. The more off the beaten path you go, the better. So if something's on a list and it's a well hit list, like everyone goes to it, then it's just going to be harder to get a deal. So more off the beaten path you go. If you can find good deals, driving for dollars is good because that's super off the beaten path. So you might see a house that's beat up and it needs a lot of work, and then you go see it, and it's not on any list, it's not anywhere. So just trying to get off the beaten path as possible. I don't want to say something specific like, hey, you should do radio ads, or hey, you should do PPC or anything like that. Those tactics kind of change over time, and it is going to be market specific with what works. But just as a overarching principle, like the more off the beaten path you go, the better deals you're going to go. You got to
Definitely. And are you buying any of your flips from the MLS at all?
From the 20 I did last year, only one was MLS. So that was the mobile home, and I think we got lucky on that one. So it's pretty rare. I still check MLS once in a while, but definitely not a main source. It gets bid up too quickly. The numbers don't make sense. And then it just never worked out for me.
All right. And then Jamar says 2008 situation, looking to sell notes. Sweet.
There we go.
Sweet. Ed here says, what numbers are you using for wholesaling? The process of evaluation. I found some different numbers I want to calculate. I came up with different numbers. How are you finding your numbers?
So typically with just 70% rule, which is 70% ARV minus repairs, is your max offer. So that typically works. That's for more flips. Typically for rentals, especially here, we follow 1% rule. So that's like, hey, if you can rent it out for $1,000, you can sell it for $100,000. If you can rent it out for $1,500, you can sell it for $150,000. So that's the rough rules. But it's going to depend if you are wholesaling. It's really going to depend on your cash buyers. So especially when I started wholesaling in 2018, everyone here nobody really followed 70% rule back then. They just wanted home runs. They wanted like 65% rule. So you really got to tailor it to your market. I know people in Jacksonville, I think they pay it's like 80 cents a dollar, 80% rule. So it just depends. It's going to really depend on your market. So that's why I recommend hey, get out there, talk to people. You'll start to see how they evaluate deals and how they think about all this.
I definitely agree. I've caught in some flack before about how I think the 70% rule is sometimes stupid in certain markets. Yeah. Obviously, when you're doing like 100K properties, it works perfect. When I'm doing like a $500,000 house, I'm going to get killed. So I do want to say that really quickly. If someone's in like a crazier market, 70% works for Victor in his market because that's perfect for like Alachua County. Other markets, you're going to get killed. So just be careful when you're doing the numbers, but 100% there. Jay says, hey, Zach. Hey, Victor. Thank you so much for continually bringing it. Thanks, Jason. Appreciate it. How do you find construction companies to rehab your flip if you're flipping out of town virtually? You got students, so what do you think?
So I have a lot of students. They live in California. They flip in, let's say, North Carolina. They live in New York. They flip in Pennsylvania. It's the same fundamentals. You got to find good people. I think probably how you manage it is going to be a little bit different if you're flipping virtually. I'd recommend at least once or twice to actually fly into the city and actually check it out in person. It's one thing for them to send photos and to send videos. It's another thing to actually see it in person. And especially if it's like, 20, 30, 40K net profit flip, you can spend a $500 airplane ticket to go and see it. So that's what I recommend there. And then just keeping on top of them, just those like daily or weekly video and photo updates. I've also seen a lot of success having someone boots on the ground. You can always grab like a realtor, or you can pay like a property manager. You can find a project manager to help you do that, just to find like a neutral third party who can make sure the contractor is doing a good job. So that's what I recommend there. I think the biggest thing with flipping virtually, I've done like deals in Indiana, so I've gone through this. I'd recommend as much as possible. Like it's just the fear of it. It's the same fundamentals. Like if it's here versus anywhere Indiana, it's still the same fundamentals. Find good people to do good work for a good price, and that's it. Okay.
And for your students who are looking to get into virtual and stuff, what are you telling them if someone lives in like Los Angeles? Obviously, a little harder to flip there. Mm-hmm. What makes a good like flipping market? Because Gainesville's pretty good. It's pretty primed. You're in Florida. Everything's good. But like, how do you find a really good virtual one?
Yeah. So I recommend, so if anybody's in like California and New York, I almost immediately tell them like, hey, you can't flip there. You can't get started there because like $500,000 or $1 million to get started doing a flip. And like, I don't want you to get started, cut your teeth on those massive deals. You got to put $100K down. Like, I mean, that's not going to happen. So with regards to that, I always found that there's a sweet spot. So when I got started, actually, I got started in Miami, and I was in there, 3 months, 4 months, and nothing, like almost nothing in terms of deals. Deal flow didn't even get close. But then I switched to Gainesville. I had a ton of success. So what I found is there's a sweet spot in terms of size. So Miami, several million people, way too big. So I'm looking at population, several million, way too big. On the flip side, you can't go in a tiny town with 500 people. So there's definitely a sweet spot in terms of market size, town size. I typically say 100,000 population to 500,000 population, just as a rough blueprint. So if you find a smoking deal in a 70,000 population city, there's still legs to that deal. But that's what I'd say to roughly look for. So don't flip in those huge cities with millions of people, because you're especially as a beginner, it's going to be hard to get your foot in the door. But just that like rough sweet spot in terms of population size.
Oh, sweet. I'm telling you, every city that we're doing our flippings less than 200.
Oh, nice.
Right? You're preaching the choir here, man.
That's what Gainesville is. Yeah. 130.
Thorough 508 asks, with hard money, will they make sure that the deal is profitable, or you at least break even on them?
No, it has to be profitable. They typically, hard money lenders look at two things. They look at the deal and they look at your credit. If they're looking at the deal, they know what they're doing. They know things go wrong. They know things take longer than expected. So they know you got to have that profit buffer because they're lending on it. So yeah, they're going to make sure the deal looks good.
Okay. Is there any tips you can give for someone to find a good hard money person versus like a predatory one?
If they're hitting you up on Facebook, or they hit you up in the spam portion of your email, then I'd recommend stay away. I get a ton of those, and that's the first thing. Like if they're hitting you up on like Facebook, then you got to be careful with that. First thing. Second thing, if it's too good to be true, be careful of that. I've seen like people told me, and they're like, oh, it's 5% interest. They're going to fund all of my deal, and they don't care about my credit. Like that's not going to work out for you. So look at those two things. There's a lot of like nationwide lenders that I recommend that are good for the lending portion of it. So just try to find them, look at reviews, that sort of thing, a lot of the basics.
Okay. And what's the good like percentage that you would say for hard money?
I typically, so it's anywhere from 8 to 12%, and it's going to depend on like how much money you put down and your experience. Someone like me with a ton of experience going to be close to that 8 to 10. Someone as a beginner, 10 to 12 with a lot of these hard money lenders. With you someone trying to get their first deal done, I wouldn't care about the interest percentage so much. I just say like, hey, get a good deal done. If you made a profit, that's a bonus, but just get started, because there's a lot of momentum in like getting your first deal done. First one's definitely the hardest, but if you can get the first one done, second one's easier, third one's easier, fourth one becomes even easier. So you get to build that momentum over time. So that's my recommendation there.
Perfect. And I'm careful of points too, but some of these hard money guys are nuts. So T says, this is great information if you're a wholesaler that will be planning to do flip later in your business. I think that's sort of a general progression, in my opinion. Obviously, you could wholesale just for income wise, but when you're actually trying to get when you got a massive deal, I always recommend to flip it. But this is great info. Jamar says, in Philadelphia, a good town to flip if I'm in Philly.
If you use my population breakdown, probably Philadelphia might be too big, just because if I'm not mistaken, it has a couple million. So I'd recommend maybe there's a suburb of Philadelphia, or I know Pennsylvania, like York, PA, or what else is in Pennsylvania? I mean, there's a lot of good cities in Pennsylvania, so it's central to a lot of stuff. But I think Philadelphia might be tough.
All right. And a quick tip, guys, if you're in Philly watching this, the city of Philadelphia, you can't wholesale within the city unless you're licensed or you have a special $200 permit, just so you guys know if you're watching this. So Jamar, just so you know. Dylan says, is small cities sustainable?
I think so. Gainesville has been here for a long time, and from what I've seen, it's going to stay here. Yeah. Part of it too, if things start to shift, especially when you're flipping, because you're in and out really quick. So I know for the next 4 months, Gainesville's going to be here. I don't think Gainesville's going to disappear in 4 months, knock on wood. Once you start doing buy and hold, that's when you want to really be careful with sustainability, because then your investment horizon is 5 years, 10 years, 30 years. So it's a little bit of a different game at that point. But for flipping and small cities, I think it's plenty sustainable.
Sweet. Naomi says, hi, is REI Facts better than PropStream in South Florida? I don't think so, but that's my opinion. Jamar says, in what situations would you use a FHA 203K versus hard money?
I've never done the FHA 203K. I've only done hard money. Typically, hard money is good when you're dealing with a motivated seller and they want to close fast, which is often the case. As I understand FHA 203K, it might take a little bit longer, like a standard FHA process. It might take like 45 days to close, which would be problematic. Like sometimes these motivated sellers, they just want to be out. They want to be done with it. They don't want to deal with anything anymore. So giving them that, hey, we're done in 2 weeks, and we're done with it. And you don't have to do like inspections. We're going to have to get like a ton of people in here, appraisers, which might be the case with FHA. I'm not sure, so I'm less familiar on that program. So you can be able to sell the convenience and sell that sort of factor of it.
Sweet. And last question here from Ashraf is Michigan still a good market?
I think so. Yeah. I have students in Michigan doing deals and running and gunning. So I think so.
Sweet. Alrighty. And the one thing you did mention is you do have students. So are you a coach? Like what's all that about?
Correct. Yeah. So yeah, full disclosure, I do this full time for flipping. But what I also mentor people nationwide, like how to get started flipping, how to get your first flip, how to get to 6 figures, how do you find the money, how do you find the deals, how do you run your numbers, like everything A to Z I teach. If folks want to get a hold of me, I have a Facebook group that's free, 6-figure house flipper. You can also look up my name online, Viktor Jiracek, and just reach out to me if you have any questions. But I help people do this as well. I lend from my journey. I made a ton of mistakes, and I want to help other people make those mistakes. I learned School of Hard Knocks, and if I can help others avoid that, tough path, then I'll be successful in that, right?
All right. So I'm telling you, like the lessons, like in wholesaling, I would say I'm kind of the guy like, hey, you should wholesale for free. I'll teach you how to do it all for free because there's a lot less risk, in my opinion. When you start putting up money on hard money, you got real stuff on the line. It's probably best to go after someone. But full disclosure, you might be asking, Zach, if you're the free dude, why are you bringing someone on that does coaching? It's not like, hey, Victor's going to help you out with some stuff. I'm telling you right now, if I put a loan out in my personal name for $300K, I'd rather know my stuff than go out there. One thing to do is I do tell people run and gun it in wholesaling. Like you don't really have to know a thing. You can go out there and find a guy like Victor to sell to. When you're flipping a house, I mean, would you agree that it's probably better to have someone sort of on your side when you're putting up hard money? Like, yeah. Okay. So
mistakes are bigger for sure.
And the one thing I do want to say this is I'm not a lawyer, financial advisor, whatever, but with hard money though, like it's not play money. Like if something bad happens, you're responsible for it, right?
Yeah. So you typically have to personally guarantee it and all that good stuff. But I mean, that's why I'm here to make sure that nothing bad happens. That's why you need like a mentor or somebody like that.
All right, sweet. And then, so is Miami and Dade not good? I don't think so. A little nutty. Michigan's good. Have done 3 deals. Can you give the top 3 things you're most likely to go wrong when using hard money to flip? Not to be a pessimist. LOL.
Typically, so it's always the same thing. So it costs more than you want in terms of renovation. It takes longer than you want in terms of renovation, and then you can't sell it for as much. So in terms of ARV, so it always comes down to the numbers. Is how I look at it. So if you get those 3 things right, then you're good. You can even be wrong. So that's why I recommend like 70% rule, or you have a good profit buffer. I've had a lot of deals where like, hey, I want to make 30, 40 on it. And then in the end, I made 10 on it. And I was happy to make 10 just because things came up. So that's happened. So not to be pessimistic, that's totally fine. That's just a part of the game.
Sweet. And then Jamar says, can you put your info in the chat? I think I popped it up here. Is this the right one?
That's the website. Yeah.
All right. ViktorJiracek.com. If you want to screenshot that really quickly. But let's see. The one other thing I did want to ask you is in our market, we do very well because I have the funds to actually close. Do you think you have an advantage on your acquisition side, being able to like show people that you actually bought 123 Main Street right there versus the average wholesaler that doesn't have like HUDs or deeds that they can show?
I don't necessarily show HUDs or deeds, but yeah, it does help to have that momentum. And I have a good website, and I always, it's never happened, but I can point them in the direction of the referral. And then just as a base, on like a base level, I have a confidence, like a real confidence, because I've done it before. Yeah. It's hard to fake that. It definitely makes it, it makes it easier. No, that's a reason why you want to get started, get your first deal done, start to build that momentum, because it does become easier. And it's easier to find contractors because you can use the same people. It's easier to like sell the property for the right price just because you know your neighborhood, know the market, know what's selling, what's not. And just like you mentioned, like when it comes to sellers and maybe they're on the fence, it's just easier to convince them because like, hey, I flipped that one, and now I want to do something with yours. Let's make a deal. So it becomes easier over time. So I definitely have that advantage.
Sweet. And then last couple questions here. So, Victor, obviously you're starting out. How old are you now?
I'm 27. Yeah.
So 27. So you don't think someone who's 25, 26, or even in their 20s, are they too young to get into flipping?
I don't think so. I mean, the two of us here are, good examples of you can get started anytime. You can get started when you're older too. Like I have folks who are in their 60s getting started, and that's fine too. I don't think there's necessarily an age requirement for real estate.
Perfect. I just want people to know that you're watching. You're 18, 19. You can get in this stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously, so you said you were in it for a good couple of years. What age did you start flipping your first house?
So I bought my first rental when I was 18. It was like a little condo in Utah for $55K. So that was my first one. And then for flipping, because I kind of took a break, as I mentioned, October of 2018 is when I got like my first flip, or got my first like kind of wholesale deal flip type of thing. So, based on where we're at now, like roughly 2.5 years ago.
Okay. So if your version today could go back in time and talk to Victor from 2.5 years ago, before he started like flipping houses in Gainesville, and you're only allowed to say two things to stop like a lot of issues, what were the two things you would tell Victor 2.5 years ago that would have probably helped you a lot?
Good question. Yeah. I really struggled with like listening to people back then. So that'd probably be the first thing, like listen to others who know what they're doing. That's the first thing. And then like the other thing is don't be so arrogant or like egotistical. So that's probably the other thing. That's caused me to be a lot of heartache, where someone says like, hey, this deal is going to cost $50,000 based on my experience. I'm like, no way, it's going to cost 30. And I like jump into it headlong. And then it's like, oh, they were right. It was actually 50,000, and they've done a lot more deals than me, so I should have listened. So I struggled and bumped my head a lot of times doing that sort of thing. So I don't think me back then would listen, and that's fine. That's part of the learning process. But that's what I'd say to myself. Like, gotta listen to others, and don't be so arrogant.
Guys, like pay attention to what he says. It will help you so much. Like I would say the same thing. But last question here. This is the Bags Riches podcast. So I do ask the same question every single time I end this.
Okay.
So I started out $300, 17 years old, got into wholesaling. If you were back at 18 years old in Gainesville, Florida, what would you do to become the next Viktor Jiracek?
I'd pretty much do what I did, just get out there, start talking to sellers. Once you get a deal, find a money partner, put it together. So pretty much the same progression. Like, just because you don't have money, having a good deal trumps money. So if you have a good deal, people are going to throw money at you. So that's the biggest thing. So get out there ASAP, get a good deal, like learn what a good deal is, how to find a good deal. And then, find a money partner. I'd follow almost the exact same progression, like find a money partner, do 50-50 deals, and then like start to do your own deals, and then, just progress from there. Yeah, basically what I did. Same advice.
Perfect, Victor. Thank you so much for coming on. Your YouTube channel, I mean, you're on it, but like you don't promote it like crazy. It's Victor Jiracek on there too, right?
I believe so. Yeah. If you want to look
Okay,
it up.
perfect. And hopefully I have you on next year. You're going to change your Facebook group to 7-figure flipping. I truly believe in you. I know you can do it, man. So I really appreciate you coming on. You got so many great gems. Before we hop off, is there any parting thoughts you got for the audience?
I think the biggest thing, it's just been a recurring theme through us talking like, hey, just get started. If you're a beginner, if you've never done a deal, like just get started, dip your toe in the water. Just even something small like attending your local RIA meetup, or like, just talking to someone, or like just even posting on your Facebook group, like, hey, Facebook wall, like, hey, I'm interested in real estate, just so people know. Just like something like little step. If you can do something small every day, just get started.
Perfect, Victor. Thank you so much, guys.